Here we are in the exhibition Sleeping Beauties, Reawakening Fashion, and I'm delighted to take you on a tour. When an item of clothing enters the Costume Institute's collection, its status is changed irrevocably. What was once a vital part of a person's lived experience becomes a lifeless work of art that can no longer be worn, heard, touched, or smelled. The exhibition endeavours to resuscitate garments in our permanent collection by reactivating their sensory qualities and re-engaging our sensorial perceptions. It aims to extend the principally visual readings of fashion within museums to multisensory and non-visual interpretations. The show unfolds as a series of case studies united by the theme of nature. Fashions inspired by the natural environment are well represented in our collection, ranging from flowers and foliage, birds and insects, and fish and shells, motifs that constitute the three sections of the exhibition: earth, air, and water. In many ways, nature serves as the ultimate metaphor for fashion, its rebirth and renewal, but also its transience and ephemerality. These latter qualities are evident in the Sleeping Beauties that ground several of the case studies, which are self-destructing with the passage of time. Let's begin the tour. The first dress we encounter in the exhibition is a Sleeping Beauty that's suffering from inherent vice, which is a term conservators use to describe a quality intrinsic to an artwork that is the very cause of its ruin. In clothing, inherent vice stems from a variety of factors, including the materials themselves, which is the case with this remarkable ball gown by Charles Frederick Worth. As you can see, the pale green satin has suffered catastrophic loss of its vertical warp threads, resulting in large areas where only the horizontal weft threads remain. In contrast, the ivory satin is still robust despite similar wear, which suggests that there's an inherent weakness in the green fabric. Unfortunately, there's no current conservation treatment that can fully stabilize the satin. The extreme fragility of the gown precludes it from being dressed on a mannequin, so in the exhibition it's displayed flat in a glass case, like all the other Sleeping Beauties. And while conservation-friendly, this display denies visitors the truest expression of the dress, which requires the dimensionality of a body. To simulate its intended appearance, we virtually resurrected the gown through a Pepper's Ghost hologram. To achieve this, the dress underwent an extensive regimen of digital scanning, photography, construction analysis, and pattern making, and then the content was manipulated to fit a digital avatar. The gown was designed to be worn to a ball, so we decided that the Pepper's Ghost should dance, which involved motion capturing the movements of a professional dancer and applying them to the avatar. The first section of the exhibition, Earth, is a celebration of flowers in fashion, an exploration of their representation and symbolism. And here we are in a gallery entitled Blurred Blossoms. Floral imagery was the most popular source of patterning for dress in the 18th century, as seen in this robe à la Française, dating to around the 1750s and 1760s. The blurred pattern of flowers achieves its painterly effects through a labour-intensive technique known as chine à la branche. It was perfected in Lyons during the first half of the 18th century and involved dyeing groups of warp threads, known as branches, before the fabric was woven. During the weaving process, the slight pulling of the thread created a hazy appearance resembling a watercolour. In motion, chine silks created a rustling sound known as scroop, which is a combination of the words scrape and whoop, which visitors can hear resonating in the hallway. Here we are in the Red Rose Gallery. There are few flowers, if any, that have been more lauded by poets and painters than the red rose, who have invoked the flower as a symbol of love, beauty, romance, passion, and sexuality. The rose has been equally embraced by designers, as seen here in a few examples that are sartorial sonnets and sculptures in and of themselves. Philip Tracy's headpiece evokes the flower's fragility, as visualized in the animation and as realized in the Sleeping Beauty, whose smell molecules emanate from the tubes on the wall. The headpiece is sculpted out of red silk duchesse satin for the flower head and green silk polyester satin for the stem, which features real acacia thorns. Yves Saint Laurent's evening dress from his debut collection for Dior is a tribute to Christian Dior himself, who had a passion for both roses and the colour red. Saint Laurent integrated other elements of Dior's stylistic lexicon into this homage, such as the asymmetrical sweep of the bodice with its virtuoso wet drapery and spiralling effect, which gives the illusion that the dress is made from one continuous length of fabric. Molecules from the dress can also be smelled through the tubes on the wall. This gallery is called The Scent of a Man. The two ensembles displayed here were featured in Francesco Risso's Spring-Summer 2024 collection for Marni, which was based on scent and the memories it induces. Each dress in the collection was sprayed with a scent, inspired by Risso's memory of a chance encounter with a young man on a visit to Paris at the age of 14. The decoupage-like appearance of the ensembles references an elaborate 19th century scrapbook that Risso found in a flea market in London. Both pieces are made of a cotton canvas base, digitally printed with a floral pattern onto which hand-cut flowers from the same pattern have been glued to the surface. This particular ensemble features hand-painted aluminum flowers on wire stems that can only be fully appreciated in movement. The sounds can be heard in the hallway, and they remind us that orality is no less pivotal in the recovery of memory than smell. Here we are in the gallery, The Garden, and the gallery actually appears like a garden, planted with hats and dresses blooming with a wide variety of flowers. Seen here is Christian Dior's ball gown, titled May, which was featured in his Spring-Summer 1953 tulip line. It comprises a fitted strapless bodice and a full dome-shaped skirt, embroidered with summer grasses and red clovers. The embroidery was executed by Rebay, whose patterning of meadow gone to weed is strewn with the red clover's distinctive trifoliate leaves and a few rarer quadrifoliate leaves. Lily the Valley was Dior's lucky flower, and his seamstresses would incorporate a sprig of the flower into the hemlines of his dresses. This coat was featured in Jonathan Anderson's Spring-Summer 2023 menswear collection for Loewe. Its verdant display of organic embroidery, which negotiates the paradox of nature and artifice, serves as a metaphor for fashion's ephemerality. The coat was a collaboration with Paula Alagui Escalona, a bio-designer who cultivates plants to grow on clothes to create a more conscious and sustainable fashion industry. She planted the coat with oat, rye and wheatgrass, which took 20 days to grow in a purpose-built greenhouse, as seen in the time-lapse video. Here we are in the gallery The Garden Live, and this particular case study is a transitional gallery between the earth and air themes of the exhibition and explores the abundant life of gardens. Gardening and embroidery were closely related in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, with each discipline borrowing from one another. A style of gardening known as embroidered became popular throughout Europe, imitating the type of needlework seen on garments like this embroidered women's waistcoat from 1615 to 1620. The embroidery presents a vision of an English garden seething with vitality. Strawberries ripen, pea pods burst open, and birds snatch at dragonflies. This dynamic Arcadia is brought to life by the animation projected on the dome ceiling. Some of the tactile experience of wearing such a densely embroidered garment is also writ large on the gallery walls. This dress by Karl Lagerfeld for Chanel is directly inspired by the embroidery style of the women's waistcoat. Lagerfeld was an incurable, if somewhat subversive historicist, and here he combines the lavishness of English Renaissance embroidery with the House of Chanel's most recognizable icon, the double C logo. Here we are in the gallery Beetle Wings. Beetles account for about 1/4 of all animal species on Earth, and humans have employed them as ornamentation for centuries. The garments displayed here engage variously with this legacy of adornment. They range from the hyperreal, as with Olivia Cheng's organza dress covered with whole jewel beetles sustainably harvested, to the abstract, as with Dries van Noten's ensemble decorated with synthetic beetle wing sequins. Van Noten's ensemble was inspired by Jan Faber's 2002 installation, Heaven of Delight, in the Palais Royal in Brussels, in which the artist covered the ceiling with over 1.5 million elytra, an effect simulated in the animation. Here we are in the gallery Butterflies. Butterflies have fluttered onto the pages of poets in countless euphoric and enigmatic metaphors, but perhaps the most universal is transformation, stemming from their unique life cycle, from caterpillar to cocoon to butterfly, figuratively embodying life, death, and rebirth. Displayed in the center of this gallery is Sarah Burton's butterfly dress, which was featured in her debut collection for Alexander McQueen after its eponymous founder and Burton's mentor took his own life 8 months earlier. The dress is veneered with turkey feathers cut, dyed, and painted to emulate the iconic pattern of the monarch butterfly. The monarch symbolizes hope, resilience, and endurance, encapsulated in its annual 3,000-mile migration across North America, a journey evoked in the animation filling the gallery. Milkweed, which is the only plant on which female monarchs can lay their eggs and from which their caterpillars can feed, provides critical fuel for the insect's annual migration. Hilary Taymor celebrated this unique relationship forged by nature in her Clean Strada Spring-Summer 2023 Got Milkweed collection, which featured the dress displayed here made from dead stock silk organza. The collection was shown at the Brooklyn Greenway Initiative's Naval Cemetery Landscape, which is an official monarch sanctuary. Charles James both reflected and realized the butterfly's ephemeral beauty in his iconic butterfly ball gown from 1955. It comprises a body-hugging chrysalis sheath of pleated silk chiffon over a silk satin ground and an exuberant winged bustle skirt of nylon tulle. As its Sleeping Beauty doppelganger reveals, however, the fragility of its materials combined with the volatility of its construction foretells its inevitable demise. While the damaged garment was used as a showpiece by both the designer and later by museums, the other was worn only a few times and stored carefully in the owner's closet for nearly 60 years. After having gone through the gallery Birds, we're now in the gallery The Nightingale and the Rose.
And when the moon shone in the heavens, the nightingale flew to the rose tree and set her breast against the thorn.
This arresting neckpiece by Salmon Costin comprises interlocking briars of patinated brass enclosing the body of a taxidermy nightingale. It was inspired by Oscar Wilde's 1888 fairy tale, The Nightingale and the Rose, in which a nightingale pours out its lifeblood by piercing its breast on the thorn of a rosebush in order to produce a perfect red rose for a lovesick boy. Surrounding Costin's neckpiece is an amphitheatre of millinery spanning the time of Wilde's fairy tale through the early 20th century, forming a macabre index of both brutality and creativity. This cruel vogue, which resulted in hundreds of thousands of birds being killed annually, resulted in the formation of protectionary organizations such as the Audubon Society in the United States and the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds in England. In the next few galleries, we move into the theme of water. This particular case study explores the enduring appeal of seashells, which in part stems from their ability to amplify ambient noise frequencies. Alexander McQueen exploited the inherent resonance of shells in his razor-clamp dress, which can be heard in the hallway. The dress was featured in his Voss collection, which related Victorian depictions of insanity to the sublime beauty of nature. Here we are in a gallery called the Siren. In her original incarnation, the mythological siren was portrayed as a birdwoman. By the 7th century, she was depicted with a fishtail, and by the Middle Ages, her reputation as a deadly, sea-dwelling seductress was firmly established. In much of Africa and the African diaspora, the archetype of the siren finds a correlation in Mamiwata, whose origins can be traced to ancient African water spirits. Her regional analogue, Mongwa Weletsa, inspired T.B. Magugu's Shipwreck Ensemble. Its print derives from Louis Le Breton's engraving, The West Indies Hurricane of 1780, which depicts ships mid-capsize, a scene evoked in the film projected in the gallery. Mamiwata's intangible form is also realized in Torishiju Dumi's ensembles. Both are made from dead stock offcuts, pieced together on the bias and finished with overlock stitchwork to create a rippling effect that manifests a human-fish hybrid. Here we are in the final gallery, The Mermaid Bride. This bridal ensemble belonged to New York socialite Natalie Potter, who wore it at her wedding to William Conkling Ladd on December the 4th, 1930. Its cathedral-length train features an expanse of interlocking scallops that recall undulating ocean waves and the concentric circles of seashells. Designed by the Calosseurs at the dawn of the Great Depression, it's devoid of lavish surface embellishment and is made of a blend of silk and cellulose acetate, which was an emerging synthetic fiber that provided an inexpensive alternative to silk. While the overblouse recalls the androgynous silhouette of the youthful 1920s garçon, the skirt with its elongated hemline anticipates the more mature and feminine aesthetic of the 1930s. Potter posed in her wedding ensemble for a portrait by Adolphe de Meyer that's displayed on a screen in the gallery. Visitors can find out more about Potter, her wedding, and her ensemble by scanning the QR code on the screen to converse directly with her using artificial intelligence. The ultimate ambitions of the exhibition are more long-term than short-term. They include extending the principally unisensory visual readings of fashion within museums to multisensory and non-visual interpretations, and also realizing the essential preservation and conservation needs of costumes while still creating sensorially experiential and enlightening exhibitions that encourage personal and participatory connections. This exhibition reminds us that the featured garments, while destined for an eternal slumber within the museum walls, don't forget their sensorial histories. Rather, they're embedded within the very fibers of their being and simply require reactivation through the mind and body, heart and soul of those willing to dream and imagine. We hope you enjoy their temporary reawakenings.